So ABC, in its infinite wisdom, shows us exactly how to make it easier for autocracy to take hold in America. And Donald's allies are suing Donald's enemies for all sorts of things of which they themselves are guilty. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. With me are Waj Ali, editor of The Left Hook on Substack and co-host of Democracy-ish right here at American Media, and Brian Karam, a White House reporter and best-selling author, also host of Reverse Shot. We also have a beautiful kitten with us, and I just want to make it clear that the only reason that Brian is allowed to wear that jacket is because hallelujah, it is once again okay to say Merry Christmas in America. Also joining us, Norm Ornstein, emeritus scholar and AEI, co-host of Words Matter podcast with Kavita Patel. Hi, guys.
Hey,
all right.
In all honesty, Randy Rainbow gave it to me, so I'm
well, there you go.
I thought Brian was doing his Elton John impression.
That's right, Elton.
And also, I do appreciate Norm's Macaulay Culkin Home Alone impression. That was very good.
That was awesome, actually. Okay, so I think today the theme of today's show is "Please talk me off the ledge." Maybe that's just like that's an evergreen theme for the show from now on. As I mentioned, this happened last week, but the fallout is still falling out. ABC's decision to settle a lawsuit they would have won by giving Donald $1 million to pay his legal fees and gifting what will be a non-existent presidential library $15 million. We've got that. We also have Donald suing Aunt Seltzer because she published a bad poll. He's also suing the newspaper that published the poll. And so the first theme is lawsuits. We have Justice Merchan ruling that Donald's move to overturn his conviction in New York will not stand. The case will be allowed to go through, which, Norm, I think a couple of things here. One, we need to sort of marshal our resources and not freak out about all of the bad things that are happening, because there are so many bad things. And some of it's not news exactly. Some of it's things that might be happening down the road. So it's just things we need to be aware of. By the same token, I think what we've done in the past is like we've overstated our, I don't know if victory is the right word, but the times in which Donald, to some small degree, is held accountable. And I think it lets people's guards down. So while the Merchan ruling is good, nothing's going to happen. So I have one question that's been troubling me is, well, a couple of things. First of all, why is it that while he's in the Oval Office, Donald can't be tried, sentenced, punished, sued, or anything else, but he's allowed to sue private citizens? Why is, I mean, it's just, obviously it's unfair, but why is that allowed?
So 2 words, John Roberts.
Oh, God.
It's what the Supreme Court did, basically. Now, having said that, civil suits are a different matter. And if I were E. Jean Carroll, I might even consider yet another attempt to get more money for libel. But having said that, Mary, there are a couple of larger points to make. One is Donald Trump is the luckiest human being on earth. And in 2016, when he got elected, he inherited an incredibly strong economy from Barack Obama. frittered it away, but people remember that. He is going to inherit an unbelievably strong economy from Joe Biden, and it'll take a while before he destroys that, although he will. But we have to be very careful about not predicting apocalypse yet, because it's going to take a while.
Right.
The second point is ABC, Disney, all of the billionaires and CEOs going to Mar-a-Lago to kiss his ring, which is a good synonym for ass,
Yes.
or other parts
Ring
of the
ass?
yeah, is a sign that Ruth Ben-Ghiat, Tim Snyder, and the other historians who've looked at the history of autocracies were absolutely spot on. This is anticipatory obedience. What ABC did and Disney opened the floodgates to now the lawsuit in Iowa, the threatened lawsuits of other media outlets. He has this bozo auctioneer, Billy Long, former congressman, coming in to head the IRS. We're going to see the playbook of Viktor Orban. If we're lucky, it'll be Orban instead of Putin, going after everyone. And that's going to include media outlets and cowing them into submission. And the problem we have is that most media outlets now, including the ones we used to rely on, the ones that gave us the Pentagon Papers, for example, the Los Angeles Times, where under Times Mirror was a pretty tough and courageous paper. Now with Bezos and the other billionaire owners who are supposed to protect us, we're not going to see that. Maybe the New York Times will be different, although, we have plenty of issues there. But the fact is, we're going to see networks and other social media outlets and others kowtowing to the autocrat. And where we're going to find our guardrails, it's going to be very difficult for all of us as we go forward. We're in a bad place. I can't talk you off the ledge. I can only put you on a higher ledge.
Wow. Or push me closer to the edge of the ledge, whatever the case may be. It's not good. Yeah, and I think one way of looking at it, and the New York Times is an outlier because the New York Times is solely a media company. The New York Times just is the New York Times. And as you pointed out, ABC News didn't settle this. The Umbrella Corporation settled this. The Umbrella Corporation doesn't give a shit about journalistic integrity. They only care about their bottom line and not getting on the wrong side of the incoming administration, because the profits are all that matters. And the news outlets are probably money losing propositions anyway, so they don't care. And Brian, we see. I want to play this clip about his alleged or planned lawsuit, because I find this great. Let me just show you actually this headline first, and then I'm going to play the clip. Donald sues Des Moines Register top pollster for brazen election interference fraud over Harris poll. Just bookmark that, and then here's what the idiot had to say.
I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points. And it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me and I loved the farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4 or whatever the number was. Way up. Way up. An easy win. We never even thought to go there.
Yeah, never thought to go there. I mean, this is nothing short of blackmail, Brian.
Well,
what's the likelihood that any outlier polls are going to be published anymore?
Well, let's break this all down. First of all, the ABC lawsuit, $15 million is to avoid discovery. It's not a big number for them. It's because maybe there was something there they didn't want heard, or they just want to make Donald Trump go away. And with $15 million, they can make him go away. That's the more likely scenario. But let's
disgusting. It's still disgusting.
Yes. Yep, either way. But the hurt across the board is larger and deeper than just that $15 million. This is a huge victory for Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't give a grass ass, about anybody and except himself. And here's the thing about the threatening of other suits. This is called SLAPP, and it's called Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. And there has been anti-SLAPP legislation introduced in all 50 states and in Congress, along with the Jamie Raskin's free press legislation, which has failed again for the third time. And this will fail. The idea is Donald Trump is going to sue you into submission. And there are companies that have done this across the board, across the country. Every time unfavorable news is reported that they don't like, if they've got a lot of money and the publication doesn't, they'll simply wear them out in court. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. It's patently illegal in all 50 states with a variety of conditions that decide whether or not it is, what's the threshold that you pass when it becomes illegal. There have been anti-SLAPP legislations. I've testified on them in Congress and in state legislatures. The most famous case was I believe it was in Iowa, where recently, where the owner of a company, an elderly woman, died after her business, or maybe it was Nebraska, where the community newspaper that she and her son ran were overrun by a police officer who didn't, they were searched and they were brought and they were sued, and just the stress of that killed her. I mean, this is a huge, huge, huge problem. And Donald Trump is going to take advantage of this for at least the next 4 years, or as long as he lives. And the fact of the matter is that he doesn't. This is another plank in him wanting compliance. You're right, Norm. It's and Mary. I'm not going to talk you off the cliff. I don't even know if I can put you on a higher cliff. I'm just going to sit there and put up some guardrails if possible. And the problem is that we don't have people who understand this business fighting against the problems in this business. And it's frightening to me that the people that I know that are look, you nailed it. ABC is an entertainment company. Journalism is a lost leader. Always has been, always will be. If you're doing it right, you're not in it to make money. So you're going to anger some people. And when you anger them, particularly those who buy the advertising, you don't get the advertising. And don't be I see that. Don't be disappointed in Stephanopoulos. Be disappointed in the parent corporation. Now, the proximate man, what you can do is to either resign and speak your mind, or you're going to have to kowtow to those who are running the show. And a lot of people, slave to the money, are going to kowtow to that corporation. If there's a proximate man who's responsible, that's where they are responsible. But do not forget that it is basically those large corporations that run it. And those large corporations want money. We are no longer journalists. We are cheap entertainment that tells you what you want to hear in your little informational silo and entertains you into the point of distraction. So I mean, that's my rant. You've heard it before, but the fact of the matter is, Mary, this is what Donald Trump is doing is called it SLAPP. And you've got to understand he's going to slap at us for 4 years to make sure. And if you look, just look at that first press conference that he had. Were there any decent questions asked? No. Was there anyone who pushed back? No. That's what you're going to get while he's in office for the next 4 years, or as long as he lives. That is why he did it. He doesn't want, and he comes out when he said, "Oh, you people really like me now." When I first came, no, we don't really like you. People have just learned if they want to stick around, they got to kiss your ass, and that's what he wants for the next 4 years. This is not about him being well liked. It's about him putting people in the room who are afraid to push back against the bully. The rest of us, and we've got to stand up even more so, because that is how you make a difference.
Yeah, and Waj, I think that when it comes to individuals, they have to, make their own choices. And I understand that it's difficult to be, the one person being sued for $100 million or whatever. And I don't know that for all we know, Stephanopoulos didn't have a choice in the matter, but he can resign. He can, he can at least make a statement that he's not going to put up with this. So I want to shift gears to Mershon. You pointed out Donald's response. And again, I think it's important to remember that we are talking about a very disturbing double standard here because, first of all, nothing's happening. It's just that it's on hold because our system is so completely broken. And meanwhile, you have the guy who is going to be I hate saying this because it makes me crazy. The guy who is going to be the leader of the free world, who has the biggest bully pulpit and the biggest bullhorn, is going after private citizens and people who are just doing their jobs to try against all odds uphold the system. So share with us, will you, what Donald had to say in his eminently measured way about Justice Mershon.
After Judge Mershon denied Donald's efforts to throw out his conviction over the immunity ruling, Trump calls him, quote, deeply conflicted, corrupt, biased, incompetent, and says his decision is, quote, completely illegal, and wait for it, psychotic. This is according to Caitlin Collins of CNN. It's trending right now. I'm like, why is Judge Mershon trending? Oh, that's why he was trending. And it's actually connected to exactly what you were just talking about. Donald wants to be an authoritarian. And as we've seen in the past, right, if you just look at Nazi Germany, corporations and the rich and the wealthy and the elite paved the way for Hitler's authoritarianism. They profited as much as they could, right? They're like, you know what? If we help him, we'll increase our bottom line, we'll make money, and maybe we'll be safe from his vindictiveness. Some of those corporations still exist, folk, and they made a lot of money. And I think that what they've decided right now, and pretty much this is every single institution, every single corporation in America, actually not even just in America, even abroad, they're like, this guy's quid pro quo. The presidency is an ATM. We know how to please him. We know how to get what we want. You give him something, he gives you something. All right, we'll give him some lift. We'll make him feel better. We'll get something out of return. Maybe we'll get deregulation. Maybe we'll get, an invite. There's a reason why Bezos and Zuckerberg last week pledged $1 million donation to Donald Trump's inauguration. You saw Disney bend the knee, as Brian said, probably to avoid discovery, but also sending the signal, hey, boss, we're good. We're one of the good ones. And George Stephanopoulos, yes, he should. I would have resigned. But as we've always said in your show, for people who don't know, who people don't live in the Beltway, this is a very incestuous ecosystem, folks. The Acela pathway from New York to DC, the stories that I've told you in the CNN green room, what Brian's told you, what Norm's told you, it's exceedingly incestuous. And there's a reason why Joe and Mika paid money to go and give fealty to Donald at Mar-a-Lago right after he was elected, and are now chiding their own viewers, right? The viewers are fleeing Mary, and they're like, you're wrong for fleeing us. So what I said,
I'm not there to hear it.
yeah, I wrote about this yesterday, and I think this is important, is Disney and ABC News, through not only their own journalism and their integrity under the bus, they threw the rest of us under the bus as well. Because The next day at the press conference, what did Donald feel like? He felt emboldened. He felt vindicated. And these lawsuits that Brian is talking about, right? They've been throwing these at everyone and anyone for the past couple of years. It's a MAGA tactic, right? To bully you, to intimidate you, but they haven't stuck. And I want to remind people that what George Stephanopoulos said coincides with what Judge Kaplan wrote. He said, not using the word rape is just like a matter of like linguistics, but for all intents and purposes, there's no difference between what the jury ruled and rape, right? Go back and read his actual quote. It's damning. So you had the quote, you had essentially Donald, being liable for sexual assault. You have the huge threshold, very hard to win a defamation case against such a public figure. and you have the First Amendment and the press. Worst case scenario, George Stephanopoulos could have come and just correct the record. And if you wanted to, and if you want to do that, I would have said, okay, technically he was held liable for sexual assault, but let me read you Judge Kaplan's quote in full. The reason that they caved is precisely for the reason that we mentioned, is to cozy up to the leader, to avoid discovery, but also in doing so, Ann Seltzer, A-plus pollster, Ann Seltzer got it wrong. I got it wrong. Most of us got it wrong. You know what she did like a normal adult? She said, I got it wrong, folks. Not only did she say that, she goes, I'm done with the polling business. And she moved on with her life. She apologized. She moved on. And this man is so vindictive, so venal, so cruel. He goes after him. Now he goes after Judge Merchan. In the past few years, Dahlia and I have used this word a lot on your show, stochastic terrorism. It's when usually media or a public personality puts a target on a group or an individual, and then there's no real connection, but nonetheless, acts of violence occur. Stochastic terrorism of MAGA. They've gone after judges, law enforcement, media personalities, poll watchers, right? Doctors, teachers. And what do you think is going to happen, Mary, now that Kash Patel, completely unqualified, is tapped to head the FBI, has openly said, I'm going to use this position to go after Trump's critics, media, politicians. And now ABC says, you know what? Go for it. Here's Georgie. Take Georgie. You know, you want to take someone else? Take them too. This happened before 9 years ago. CNN, you know, like literally Trump's viewer, Caesar Sayoc, is in jail right now because all of Trump's enemies, he targets them, folks. He paints a target on them. And then MAGA picks up the torch and chases them. Happened on January 6th. You know, Caesar Sayoc sent pipe bombs against his enemies. He's in jail right now. One of those enemies was the press. So it's one of those situations where it's going to get worse before it gets better. I'm with Norm. I'll try to be an optimist. We'll just try to take you to a higher ledge. And as MAGA sits,
You know that's worse, right?
well, I mean, you get to live a bit longer. You get to live a bit
I don't know
longer.
if that's optimistic, but
Because look, can I say this? And before we give the baton back to you and Norm, is I was thinking about this a lot. Half of America voted for 35% of America voted for this. Half of America, according to the poll, wants this. And I thought about this. Donald reveals America. The hoods are off. There's no dog whistles. America's always been this way. America would rather drain swimming pools than to have black kids and white kids swim together. America would rather secede and start the most bloody war in American history than grant black people, you know, liberty. This is America. And so I think there's a little bit more of us than them. And sometimes, Mary, you learn the hard way. I don't know if they'll learn, but I know there's going to be a lot of pain. And I feel like we're in Empire Strikes Back territory. We just have to resist. This is why I feel like, you know, as Dunkirk, there was a line that Churchill said, survival is victory. We got to survive it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I just also to put it into some context, again, it almost makes it worse. But $15 million for ABC/Disney Corp is like what you and I would find under the couch cushions. So the problem then becomes what happens to, not mentioning any names, but those of us who, get sued for $100 million or 500, whatever, who don't have $15 million under the couch cushions, right? Like the Ann Seltzers of the world. You know, it's even in legal fees. I mean, hopefully she'll get a good pro bono attorney, but I mean, it's just it is disruptive. It will be disruptive, and the more this happens to more individuals, the more chilling the effect it will be. And I mean, I think this is going to be a permanent segment of the show. Democrats continue to fail us. So I'm going to read a quote from Brian. I don't know how to Butler. Wait, right?
Bueller.
Butler.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. Like I've read his stuff for a very long time, and I don't know how to pronounce his name because I've never heard anybody say it out loud. Okay, so he writes, Democrats have, by contrast, affirmatively decided not to treat anything Donald's doing as untoward unless and until it pertains to things like healthcare and tax policy. And in their terribly narrow cast conception of politics, other potential bulwarks against mafia-style government are collapsing, unquote. Yeah, that about sums it up. So Norm, as previously mentioned, we've got the horrible irony of Donald suing somebody else for election interference. We have Barry Loudermilk, insurrectionist, who got away with it, thanks Merrick Garland, who released a report on Tuesday saying that Liz Cheney should be investigated by the FBI for possible criminal activity for her role in the January 6th committee. I mean, the silence, the inaction allows for this kind of thing, one, to happen, and two, to take hold. So, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say necessarily, other than I feel like we keep asking the same question, but it's not getting answered by Democrats. What are Democrats doing?
Sure. So first, let us note that whenever somebody pays protection money, it doesn't protect them.
Right.
You show that, and that's true of Donald. It's true of organized crime. You pay, and then the next week it's, well, you were protected this last time, but we'd sure hate to see something happen to your store now, and you have to pay again. So ABC and Disney are going to be hit again if they do anything that criticizes
and harder.
And of course, to follow on your point, Mary, Trump is suing ABC or is suing Ann Seltzer and the Des Moines Register and the others that he will sue in his private capacity, but he has all the resources of government. Right. You can bring destructive, phony charges against people, and they have to pay huge sums of money just to get out of it. And that's going to be deeply, deeply destructive. The second point here, though, is one of Trump's MAGA minions yesterday said, after Donald Trump invited Daniel Penny, acquitted of murder, but who murdered a defenseless man with a serious mental illness on the subway in a George Floyd style asphyxiation. It had him at the Army-Navy game. And now you have one close to Trump saying, we need many more Daniel Pennies who can take care of these people. And what that means is you're encouraging vigilante justice against especially people of color, but anybody with a mental illness. And what we know is, following on the treatment of other assassins, murderers, George Zimmerman, to pick one example, glorifying them, that we are going to see more efforts of vigilante justice and people who think that they're protected from the consequences by the pardon power that Trump will employ.
Yeah, Norm, I'm really glad you brought that up because first of all, the people Donald had at that game, it was just the worst of the worst were invited there, including the not at all missed Joe Manchin. But it's just like these people like Daniel Penny and Kyle Rittenhouse, like they just reveal themselves to, like, are we surprised that Daniel Penny turns out to be a Donald supporter? In that case, I wish I could remember. It was an incoming congressman said that we need more Daniel Pennies because we have too many Jordan Neelys. So I just want to break that down for a second because Brian, because we need more Daniel Pennies. I disagree wholeheartedly. These are, as Norm said, vigilante murderers. He murdered an unarmed homeless man with mental
Brandon
illness, right?
Gill, incoming Republican from Texas, Brandon Gill.
Thank you, Wash. Yeah. Also, you just reminded me, we want to be aware that committee assignments are still being voted on today by the one between Ocasio-Cortez and the other guy. I just
Connolly.
having trouble with names today, but anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But first of all, as a New Yorker, if you can't ride the subway without understanding that there will be homeless people and people struggling with mental illness and overcrowding, it's going to be crowded, don't come here. Like, if you're such a coward that you freak out anytime somebody acts in a way you're not accustomed to, just stay away. Like, it's part and parcel of riding the New York City subway. If you leave people alone, nothing's going to happen to you. Seriously. So this guy is a murderer. And the second half was, we have too many Jordan Neelys. Now, he meant it in a negative, disgusting way.
Yep.
But it is true. Our system lets people down all the time. We have too many homeless people. We do not do enough for the mentally ill in this country. And it leaves them open to the violence perpetrated against them by horrible human beings like Daniel Penny. So that's not really a question, Brian, but
no,
I just had to rant about that for a bit.
Look, we do have too many homeless people. Why? Because let's go back to Ronald Reagan cutting the funds that led to those people out in the streets. And then they say, oh, these horrible people out in the streets are creating crimes. And by God, that's...
Yeah. Would you consider pardoning Eric?
Oh, my God.
Donald's interrupting me already? That bastard.
Oh,
wait till he gets back in the White House.
Sign of things to come.
Yeah, no kidding. But that, it's using the results to justify what you did, and what you did gave us the results. It's a circular, cyclical argument of illogic. And at the same time they do this, they are telling you that you're the one that's in error. You're the one that's wrong. You're the one that, because you have feelings for people, you are wrong. You don't get it. That if you really want to help out people, kill them. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to for these people. Logic is not there. And go back to Donald Trump again during that press briefing that he had when he said people really liked him. What else did he say? It looks like I'm going to have to do some more of this. What else did he say? He called into question, folks, the vaccines that make sure that we no longer have mumps, measles, I don't know, polio. He called in the polio vaccine. And here's one I'll give to the wonderful, redoubtable senior senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, who went and said, are you crazy? I had polio as a kid. You're nuts. Even that guy.
But that's what it takes on the right. It has to affect you directly.
That's
before you're going to stand up for it.
And Mary, you're absolutely right. If it affects them, then they understand it. If it doesn't, then it's not a problem. And the fact of the matter is, this affects all of us. And if you do not push back against Donald Trump, then you are going to face the repercussions, and we all will. You've got, if you're going to deny, I love the guy who went to Antarctica to prove the world was flat and now has changed his mind. I mean, maybe we can send Donald there. That's at the end of the day. I just want to, or shoot him into space with the wonderful Husky Muskie and send them both to Mars. But at the end of the day, none of these people seem to understand that what affects one affects all. And that goes back to the priest. I forget his name. He said, they came for the communists. I did nothing. They came for the socialists. And then they came for me, and no one was there to stop them. That's what we're facing. It is self-destructive selfishness. Thank you, Vivek's mom. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it also, there's so much going on. We know this is a tactic that it's people to get their attention diverted away from other things that actually have an impact. And we can continue to talk about this in the context of how did Democrats keep failing us this week. So we have a drive to privatize on the right, to privatize the United States Postal Service, citing financial losses, to which I say, how much money did what was the Defense Department's profit last year, given the fact that they got $900 billion of budget? We have, as a continuing fallout from the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision, which for reasons I will never understand was not nearly as much of an issue in this election as it had been previously. Texas is suing a New York doctor accused of mailing abortion bills across state lines. That's fun. And we have, I mean, this isn't a big deal except to those of us who live here. Donald's talking about pardoning Eric Adams. And we also, Waj, you flagged this for me. We have the fact that a highly qualified nominee to be, I think, the federal appellate court.
Third Circuit.
Third Circuit, yeah.
Third Circuit was blocked by 3 Democrats. And now I think I'm using the term loosely when I talk about Joe Manchin. But the other 2 were 2 Nevada Democrats, Cortez Masto and Rosen. And
Yep.
I mean, what? Like, we can't even stick together to do the right thing when it's easy. Waj.
You know, I'm glad you brought this up. I just want to connect the dots real quick. Just Judge Adil Manji was nominated by President Biden, who would have been the first Muslim appellate judge on the Third Circuit. Forget that he's Muslim. Forget that he's Pakistani American. Just impeccable judge who had the endorsement from across the board: civil rights groups, Jewish groups, ADL, AGC, Muslim groups, right? And the only reason why he's not sitting judge right now, and he sent me and a whole bunch of other reporters his fantastic letter. If you have 5 minutes, read his 3-page letter. It is chef's kiss. I mean, he just burns people with like eloquence. And you sit there and go, you would have been a great judge. It's because Tom Cotton and Republicans.
Why do you think he won't be?
Yeah, because he's Muslim, because he's brown-skinned, not Arab, not Palestinian, Pakistani American, all right? And we know that this horrible war has been going on, which Amnesty now just called a genocide. But they decided in his confirmation hearing not to ask him about, I don't know, his rulings, his competence. They equated him with Hamas, and they asked him about 9/11. And he's sitting there like, why are you all talking about like 9/11 and Hamas? It was disgusting. And there was a smear campaign that was then launched against him. And then these Democrats who know better, because their colleagues like Cory Booker and others are like, this is disgusting. This man is qualified. Even AJC, ADL, right? 2 problematic organizations, especially in the past year, like, yo, we got no problem with this guy. It didn't matter. Deliberate right-wing lies and smearing and scapegoating based upon someone's identity. Don't do identity politics, unless, of course, it helps us win elections. And they then delayed this extremely qualified man's nomination. And then the 2 Nevada senators and Joe Manchin just caved, bent the knee. Joe Biden, other Democrats didn't throw any pressure. Schumer didn't throw any pressure. Then they made that sweetheart deal, right, where they would give up some of these judges with Schumer was sitting there patting, Trump on the back. They made a deal, the judge swaps, if you will. And so Adil Manji yesterday sends a bunch of us this letter, which gets published, where he not only breaks down his impeccable track record, he openly calls out how it was a smear campaign done against him. He ends it with a note of defiance. He goes, no matter what happens, I am, and I will always proud to be a Muslim American. And then he also eviscerates, without naming them, these 3 Democrats, talking about their capitulation. And he says something that I think all of us here would agree. And he mocks and ridicules the performative bipartisanship and the cost of performative bipartisanship. And what he's pretty much saying, without saying it, but he's a judge, is like, you mother effers bent the knee. You should have fought for me. They came after me, to quote Niemuller, right, Brian, because I was Muslim and Arab. They're going to come after you, and you should have some ethics, and you should fight for it, and you didn't. Well, you know what? I'll live my life. I'm still proud to be a Muslim, but this is going to keep happening again and again and again. And what are you going to fight for? And the answer that we have is they're not going to fight. I mean, look at the person that I don't know if I shared this with you, Mary, but I was thinking about this yesterday. I saw this animal clip on Twitter, one of the non-Nazi things on Twitter that went viral. It was a slow motion, kind of beautiful aerial shot of a father buffalo and his son trying to outrun a massive pack of wolves. The father buffalo then nudges into his son. The son then falls behind. The wolves descend on the son. He gets to escape. I sat there. I'm like, that's the Democratic Party. I swear to God, I was just like, oh, look, Connolly, 74 years old. Let's vote for him instead of AOC.
Yeah, let's see what we got here.
There you go.
Connolly wins vote to top oversight. Wow. Okay, so that's the full caucus voting. Oh wait, no. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is the full caucus voting.
Yeah.
And again, listen, I want to be really clear, and this isn't the issue we're talking about, but it's part and parcel of it. And I just this is not about ageism. It's not because he's 74. It's because we need to go in a different direction, and now we're not. Right, Waj?
Yeah, but and I am also going to talk about not ageism, but deliberately destroying your youth, punishing your youth, attacking your youth, right? Jasmine Crockett ran. Nope. AOC tried to run. They shoved her behind the back, according to the reporting, right?
Well, I mean, she and Nancy Pelosi have a bit of a history, so I'm not that surprised.
And then also, I know people might not like hearing this. Pelosi, God bless her, 84.
Also, she's not leader anymore, so it's like, I'm not sure why she's...
Clyburn, 84. Connolly, 74. Durbin, 80. Schumer, 74. And I'm not using old as ages, but the old mindset. If they were like young brawlers, despite being 84, I couldn't care. Maxine Waters is 86, uplifts the youth, fights. You don't see me talking about it, right? But it's with the age and with their behavior, it's a commitment to an old guard mindset. And they literally are like punishing, even with progressives and young people, the way the Democratic establishment is, you shut your mouth and you better get in line or else, and we're going to feed you to the wolves. What MAGA does is, yes, it has a vindictive mob boss personality of Donald Trump. He'll throw literally Mike Pence to the wolves. But you see them, they go, Joe Rogan voted for Bernie. But you know what? He's in line with us right now on a few things. We'll take him. Candace Owens is Nazi adjacent now, and she's against us on Israel. But you know what? She's with us on a few other things. We'll take him. Theo Vaughn, we can use him. We'll take him. And what they do is they batten the hatches around their most nutty, freakish, downright criminal members. And they're like, no, we won't throw Marjorie Taylor Greene under the bus. We won't throw Boebert under the bus. And you see the Democrats be that dad buffalo saying, young people, people with passion, warriors, progressives, wolves, eat them. Adil Manji, highly qualified judge. Here, wolves, here's your supper. Sorry for my rant.
No. Go ahead. Yeah, Norma, I was going to go to you next. So go right ahead.
I will say, Waj, that Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn stepped down and allowed Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar to step in without a murmur or any kind of issue. And while it took some push, Jerry Nadler stepped aside for Jamie Raskin. So
that gives me hope.
Yep.
We actually, it's quite impressive. But I want to move you to an even higher ledge, Mary, with this story.
Wait a minute. Is that the point of this?
No, it's not the point, but it's so the New Republic has a report on what Pete Hegseth has written. And just listen to this paragraph. America will decline and die. A national divorce will ensue. Outnumbered freedom lovers will fight back. The military and police, both bastions of freedom-loving patriots, will be forced to make a choice. It will not be good. Yes, there will be some form of civil war. Yep. This is the guy they picked to head the Pentagon. Civil war where he will use the military against us. And there is a 50-50 chance that the Republicans in the Senate will bow down and confirm this guy. And we are, we're moving beyond simply the Orban style use of threats and the power of the Internal Revenue Service and the other abilities of the Justice Department to bring lawsuits to cow people into submission. We're going to see something more and worse unless somehow somebody steps up. I still have some hopes for the House Democrats, even in the minority, especially if they are able to move into the majority to be able to push back a little bit. I should also note that one of the more effective House Democrats in using ridicule to absolutely destroy Republican idiots like James Comer, Jared Moskowitz,
Yes.
of Florida, is now being floated by Trump to be the head of FEMA. And this fits his background, but it's a little bit like Trump floating the idea of bringing in Ron DeSantis into his cabinet in return for picking Lara Trump as the replacement for Marco Rubio, which is basically a way of getting people out of their positions and then firing them after a short while. And that's what would happen with Moskowitz. You get an effective Democrat out of the House, put him in a position, 3 months later, you fire him, and then he's out of politics.
May I remind?
Wait, hold on a second. Donald is thinking of picking Jared Moskowitz, Democrat of Florida, to be head of FEMA?
Yeah.
Came out last night.
Yeah.
Is Moskowitz going to fall for this nonsense?
I sure hope not, because we know what the ploy is. And, part of this is Republicans who voted against disaster aid before Donald Trump won election, and then saw Florida, South Carolina, Georgia decimated, now just voted for $100 billion in disaster relief. They're perfectly happy to have a guy, a Democrat in that position who will deal with the disasters, which are mostly in their own red states. And then they'll fire him.
That's actually a really good point, because putting a climate change denying Republican in charge of FEMA would maybe not end so well for them, because they're always against giving aid to states that are not their states. So, but Jared, don't fall for it.
No, as soon as Moskowitz, if he were in that position, said we got to give aid to California for the fires or the mudslides or whatever, Trump would fire him.
Because we're in a position where we might we're in a position where there might be a 1-seat margin if the 3 House Republicans whom Donald has chosen for other positions take them or get appointed to them, or confirm for them. So I don't know, man. Clearly that was not Donald's idea. And that is the problem in term 2. That we're going to be dealing with. Somebody said to me recently, isn't Donald too busy doing other things to continue to engage in personal attacks? Let's leave it at that, right? And I was like, that's all he's going to be doing. Like, his whole term, his job, this whole term is going to be raiding the Treasury and getting revenge.
24/7 Festivus. Exactly.
And the people in the position leading the DOD, the DNI, et cetera, they're going to be incompetent ideological horror shows. But their deputies will know exactly what to do to push the agenda of the Trump administration, which will be to make them as rich as humanly possible and dismantle democracy. So again, this brings us back, Brian, to the whole Democrats are doing what exactly? Because
nothing.
And this is also about addressing things that it's almost like, well, something's been decided, so what are you going to do? Well, you're going to keep fighting, because now we're hearing this. The first entering class at Harvard Law School since the Supreme Court's 2023 decision about outlawing affirmative action in college admissions had fewer than half as many Black students as last year's class.
Well
done.
Are we surprised by it? Look, what surprises me is that the most I've heard against, for example, Hegseth in Congress hasn't been from Democrats. It's been from Republicans, who a number of whom have said he doesn't even know what the Posse Comitatus Act is. And that is what he would have to ask permission from Congress to use our military forces on our sovereign soil. And that was passed by Republicans at the end of the Civil War to make sure that we don't use the military on our people who live here. But nonetheless, they don't even understand. And I go back to, this is why Donald Trump is more dangerous this time around, because when we first showed up, I remember asking specifically when he wanted to use the military down on the border to enforce some of his more arcane rules about people coming into this country. and he was going to send a military. And there were 3 or 4 of us who walked into that White House, the press room, and said, hey, is he going to ask for a waiver on the Posse Comitatus Act, which presidents have done in the past, but the Congress okays it, and then they can do it for a set, brief, specific amount of time. And I was told, what is that like? Is that like a guideline, or is that a policy? And not even the people in his administration then didn't even know what it was. And when we left that room, I'll never forget one of the press aides looking at me and go, I'll get back to you about that Hakuna Matata thing. They didn't even understand. They didn't even know the name of it. Now, Hegseth is one of those, but they now do know what the Posse Comitatus Act is, and they now do know that they're going to avoid it, and they will get it. They will get a waiver for an unspecified long length of time. That's the danger, and Hegseth is a danger, and these people are a danger, and some of the Republicans know it. Here's the kicker. The Democrats will push and not know how. The Republicans will know how to push and won't. And that's where we're at in this particular administration already. The incoming administration it's all about, Mary, you nailed it. It's all about personal vendetta for him. Yes, the ultimate Festivus, if you want there. Waj, it's the ultimate Festivus. Happy Festivus for him. And he's going to do it. And the people that you have to worry about it's not Donald Trump. The last time Donald Trump was in office, the people who ran those departments kept the paperwork from him because they didn't want him to sign it. These people who are kissing his butt, and look, I just got 3 notices this morning about friends, neighbors, family, and close friends that are going to be in the administration again. So if you're a Fox, if you're a close friend, if you're a billionaire, you're in. Those people are going to bring him the paperwork to sign, and he's going to do it.
They're just going to make one of those signature stamps.
That'll be easier for him.
And have a conveyor belt.
Yes, that's exactly what it's going to be. And at the end of the day, that's the danger of this incoming Trump administration. The Democrats do not know how to fight back against it effectively. They're trying to, but they're still eating their own. The Republicans know what's wrong, but don't care. And those in the administration are eager to push it through. This is a disaster of biblical proportions. I'm waiting for the ark.
Yeah. Waj, before I ask you a question, I just realized something. I live in Manhattan. To those of you outside of New York, and to those of us inside, I live in the city. And just realized that you guys have put the ledge I'm on so that it's higher than our tallest building. So thanks for that. Is that the new competition? How high a ledge can we put Mary on? So
survival is victory.
That should be a new segment as well. So I think we need to push back wherever we can, Wash. And you put in the chat that the Washington Post is having a difficult time getting editor-in-chief. Good. I know they've lost a lot of excellent journalists and reporters to other outlets. And, I have to say that ABC, I mean, not that it should have happened. And, not that this is what we want, but they're doing independent media a favor by making it harder and harder and harder to do what needs to be done in order to continue supporting corporate / traditional / legacy media.
I mean, it is good for the rest of us, but it's also bad for America because there's something as the fourth estate. And, we're all old enough with gray hairs to know that any journalist would have died, would have chopped off their finger back in the day to be considered to be editor of the Washington Post. And now people literally, when they're getting the pitch from this Murdoch lackey, this henchman, Will Lewis, who's now Bezos's henchman, right? A billionaire henchman. They're uninspired by the direction, allegedly, according to Axios. So imagine that, literally they're like, you get to be the editor-in-chief of the Washington Post next to the gray lady. This is the institution in America that broke, a Watergate, right? The Pentagon Papers, right? Investigative journalism matters, folks. There's a lot of great people who still work at these corporate establishment outlets who are doing good work.
New York Times broke the Pentagon Papers. The Post up after.
Post published it, right? Thank you, nerd. Thank you.
But that's what journalism nerd here.
But that's what journalism does. It fact checks. It has resources. Investigative news. we need it. We need a robust New York Times, Washington Post. So the fact that this is happening is just like you see our institutions being destroyed by willingly capitulating, you know, takeover by the oligarchy. Bezos owns the Washington Post. The millionaire owns LA Times, has elevated Scott Jennings. Like I said, Bezos and Zuckerberg giving $1 million. Musk owns Twitter, right? USPS is a non-profit entity which will now be privatized. So congratulations, everyone who was worrying about the price of my eggs. You won't get your medication to save your life or your checks, because a lot of people live in rural areas and rely upon the USPS for, like, small businesses rely on USPS, folks. So it is going to be a very difficult time for America for the next 4 to 8 to 12 years, Mary. We have to fight back as much as we can. And by doing independent media, by doing your show, by supporting Mary Trump, Nerd Avengers, for those who are watching, this is us trying our best to use our time, our voice, our talents to push back, to not gaslight, to connect the dots for you. Listen, Kamala only lost by 1.5 percentage points. They just released that the House
Trump has a mandate. It was a landslide.
The House was lost by only 7,000 votes across three. It was gerrymandered.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. That's it. You know, she only lost if 110,000 votes had gone her way, she would have won the Electoral College. So that money that you guys give, the tips, the donations. If you look at this video, you look down right now under our face, you'll see a subscribe button. Subscribe. To the right of it, you'll see a thumbs up and a thumbs down. If you press a thumbs up, that's a like. That doing subscribing, liking, the elves in the machine, they like it and they spin the algorithm in our favor. If you share this right after Mary publishes it, it goes a long way. And then to the next to the share button, there's a circle. You'll see a dot. You press that, and there's a second button underneath. There's a heart with a $sign. If you click on that, you can actually donate to us tips. It goes a long way. I'm saying all this because Mary doesn't, and I'm trying.
Well, not as well as you.
Yeah. And I'm trying to promote it. So it go like $1. Thank you so much. $1.49. It all goes a long way, and we're building it from the ground up. And Mary started in the summer, and I think now, how many do you have? Do you have 250K, Mary?
No, not quite. That's our next goal. We're at 250.
That's game changer stuff. We're almost there. So
it's a tipping point.
We're trying to get 250.
Yes, thank you, Waj. I really appreciate that. And I just, we're almost at the end of the show. Just so before I let everybody know what our holiday schedule is going to be like, I just want to, Norm, point out that a lot of the stuff we talked about, we didn't dive deep into it because there's so much else going on, but things like privatizing the United States Postal Service, which since Donald installed Louis DeJoy has obviously been a goal. I think one conversation we need to have is one, how the left, how Democrats do us all a great disservice by letting Republicans set the agenda and then chasing them. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I can't see. It's very small, but thank you so much for that.
Randy Alina.
Thank you, Randy Alina. And also, the idea, so letting Republicans set the agenda and then following, like on immigration, letting them set the tone, and then failing to let people know that the Democrats are the ones who want to protect things like the Postal Service, which if the United States Postal Service is privatized, Norm, who gets harmed the most?
Rural voters, rural people. People in remote areas, because only the Postal Service goes there. And as one of our listeners pointed out before I could say it, if you look at what FedEx, UPS, DHL do, they use the Postal Service to deliver to these places. Now, let's also add that they want to privatize the National Weather Service, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. And another reason why Jared Moskowitz would be nuts to take the FEMA job is that we're going to lose our early warning of storms for a whole lot of people, because whoever takes over the weather service, weather.com or whoever it may be, is going to say, you want an early warning, you got to pay for it. So we're going to, and this is where the narrow margin in the House, which I hope will get narrower, although we really have to hope, frankly, that Nancy Pelosi comes back very quickly from her hip replacement, which is not a great thing to have when you're 84.
No.
Because we need everybody there. We have to try and make sure that they can't get away with these privatizations, which are basically just another part of Donald's grift. It's going to be, you give me more money, I'm going to give you valuable government assets for next to nothing so you can make more money. So we're going to need all the help we can get. We mentioned the Post. Let's say that if Watergate were up now and this were the Post ownership, instead of standing up to the Attorney General threatening Katie Graham with having her tit in a ringer if they keep publishing this stuff, they would do an apology to Nixon.
That's right.
And ProPublica is the one entity out there that has been courageous, and let's hope they keep it up and we can get at least a little bit of spine. I would love to see, just finally, some of our patriots who have money, like Mark Cuban, make a bid with Warner Brothers to Discovery to buy CNN and turn it into a nonprofit, giving it a little more insulation so we can get at least one legacy media outlet that would be insulated from the pressures that we know are going to be there now. And of course, it'll take another year plus for MSNBC to be unwound from all of this, but it's a similar thing. Would anybody trust NBC or the corporate lords who have now spun off those networks to avoid the pressure from a Trump administration? No.
Let's put together a GoFundMe and we'll buy an MSNBC.
And Twitter. I want to buy Twitter, but
Oh, that would be great to buy Twitter.
That ain't happening. But yeah, so people need to start talking to the money people on the left, because not enough is being done. And the fact that Democrats our elected Democrats aren't making that a huge issue of creating a media infrastructure, communications infrastructure that can compete on the same level as what the right has is kind of mind-blowing, but then so much is mind-blowing. Okay, so I've got to go run and buy a parachute just in case that ledge keeps
one in my closet here.
higher. That's all right. I'm a little paranoid. I'm going to get my own parachute. You're going to need one too, Brian. It's not just me on the ledge. Come on.
I can sell you all parachutes.
From Noah.
Wait, look, there will be Donald Trump hawking parachutes just as he's hawked all the other things and continues to.
By the way, can you name one person in the you would less want to buy a parachute from than Donald Trump?
Or a Christmas ornament, and I get that pitch 3 times a day.
Well, apparently Christmas
is a function, so sue me.
Exactly. Anyway, thank you to everybody for spending time with us today. Yes, the very best parachutes, just economical, least material use to put them together. To our moderators who have been working overtime today, last couple of days, thank you so much. Just a quick thing about our schedule. We'll have Nerds on Thursday, and then we'll have Nerds next Monday. Right? Monday's the 23rd. So we're going to give people the 24th off. The 25th is the first night of Hanukkah and Christmas. So everybody's got stuff to do. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people.
This is why America needs Muslims. This is why America needs Muslims. Because
and non-believers.
Pakistani restaurants and Chinese restaurants are always open, baby. You're welcome, America.
There you go. So we'll be here Monday as well, and then we'll keep you posted throughout the holidays. But again,
I just thought of a Christmas story. The movie.
Yes, we'll tell the Christmas horror stories.
Don't forget the podcast, Mary.
Oh, thank you. See, everybody's doing my job for me because I am on the ledge.
Mercedes is so happy right now. Look at Mercedes' face. She goes, "Yes, thank you, Norm."
Thanks for reminding her to do her job. Yes. So the Nerd Avengers, now a podcast on what's it called? Spotify, and we're on Google. We will be on Apple at some point. We're going to have a Spotify conversation next week. I'm going to explain to you why I changed my mind about Spotify. And Thanks to all our tweeps who've joined us. Thanks so much to all of our donators. And of course, Brian, Waj, Norm, you guys are awesome. I will see you soon. And we will see you here Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern, live. In the meantime, please.
Monday.
No, Thursday.
Oh, Thursday and Monday.
First, Waj.
Yeah. First Thursday. We have to get through this week first. And in the meantime, yes, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. See ya.